The disappearance of the Minoan civilization and the link to the rise of the Mycenaean. Please subscribe now for more content on ancient history news and civilizations, archaeology, mysteries and world mythology. The Minoan civilization flourished in the Middle Bronze Age on the island of Crete, located in the eastern Mediterranean from about 2000 BCE until about 1500 BC. With their unique art and architecture and the spread of their ideas through contact with other cultures across the Aegean, the Minoans made a significant contribution to the development of Western European civilization as it is known today. Labyrinth-like palace complexes, vivid frescoes depicting scenes such as bull leaping and procession, fine gold jewelries, elegant stone vases, and pottery with vibrant decorations of marine life are all particular features of Minoan Crete. The archaeologist Sir Arthur Evans was first alerted to the possible presence of an ancient civilization on Crete by surviving carved sealstones worn as charm by native Cretans in the early 20th century CE. Excavating at Knossos from 1900 to 1905 CE, Evans covered extensive ruins which confirmed the ancient account, both literary and mythological, of a sophisticated Cretan culture and possible sites of the legendary labyrinth and palace of King Minos. It was Evans who coined the term Minoan in reference to his legendary Bronze Age king. Seeing what he believed to be the growth and decline of a unified culture on Crete, Evans divided the island's Bronze Age into three distinct phases, largely based on different pottery styles. These phases, according to Evans, include Early Bronze Age or Early Minoans of 3000 to 2100 BC. The second is the Middle Bronze Age or Middle Minoans, about 2100 to about 1600 BC. We also have the Late Bronze Age or Late Minoan of 1600 to 1100 BC. Radiocarbon dating and three-ring calibration techniques have helped to further refine the dates so that the Early Bronze Age now begins at about 3500 BCE and the Late Bronze Age at about 1700 BCE. An alternative to this series of divisions created by Plato instead focuses on the events occurring in and around the major Minoan palaces. This scheme has four periods: the pre-Palatial period of 3000 to 2000 or 1900 BC, the proto-Palatial of about 2000 or 1900 to 1700 BCE, the Neo-Palatial period of about 1700 to 1470 or 1450 BCE, and the post-Palatial era of 1470 or 1450 to about 1100 BCE. Both of these schemes have since been challenged by more modern archaeology and approaches to history and anthropology in general, which prefer a more multilinear development of culture on Crete with a more complex scenario involving conflict and inequalities between settlements, and also considers their cultural difference as well as their obvious similarities. Minoan settlements, tombs, and cemeteries have been found all over Crete, but the four principal palace sites in order of size were the Palace of Knossos, Phaistos, Malia, and Zakros. At each of these sites, large, complex palace structures seem to have acted as local administrative, trade, religious, and possibly political centers. The relationship between the palaces and the power structure within them or over the island as a whole is not clear. due to a lack of archaeological and literary evidence. It is clear, however, that the palaces exerted some kind of localized control, in particular in the gathering and storage of surplus materials, wine, oil, grain, precious metals, and ceramics. Small towns, villages, and farms were spread around the territory, seemingly controlled by a single palace. The roads connected this isolated settlement to each other and the main center. There is a general agreement among historians that the palaces were independent from each other up to about 1700 BCE, and thereafter they came under the sway of Knossos, as evidenced by a greater uniformity in architecture and the use of linear A writing across various palace sites. The absence of fortifications in settlements suggests a relatively peaceful coexistence between the different communities. However, the presence of weapons such as swords, daggers, and arrowheads, and defensive equipment such as armor and helmet could also suggest that peace may not always have been enjoyed. Minoan roads have evidence of regular guardhouses and watchtowers, suggesting that banditry at least troubled the unprotected traveler. The palaces themselves covered two periods. The first palaces were constructed around 2000 BCE and, following destructive earthquakes and fires, rebuilt again at about 1700 BCE. These second palaces survived until their final destruction between 1500 BCE and 1450 BCE, once again by either earthquake, fire, or possibly invasion, or a combination of all of these. The palaces were well-appointed monumental structures with large courts, colonnades, ceilings supported by tapered wooden columns, staircases, religious crypts, light wells, extensive drainage system, large storage magazines, and even theater areas for public spectacles or religious processions, reaching up to 4 stories high and spreading over several thousand square meters. The complexity of these palaces, the sports of the bull leaping, the worship of bulls as indicated by the presence of sacred bull's horns, and depictions of double axes or labyrinths in stone and fresco may also have combined to give birth to the legend of Theseus and the labyrinth-dwelling Minotaur, so popular in later classical Greek mythology. The religion of the Minoans remains sketchy, but details are revealed through art, architecture, and artifacts. These include depictions of religious ceremonies and rituals such as the pouring of libations, making food offerings, processions, feasts, and sporting events like bull leaping. Natural forces and nature in general manifested in such artworks as a voluptuous female Mother Earth goddess figure and male figure holding several animals seem to have been revered. Palaces contain open courtyards for mass gatherings, and rooms often have wells and channels for the pouring of libations. Bulls are prominent in Minoan art, and their horns are an architectural feature of palace walls and a general decorative element in jewelry, frescoes, and pottery decoration. Dramatic rural sites such as hilltops and caves often show evidence of cult rituals being performed there. The sophistication of the Minoan culture and its trading capacity is evidenced by the presence of writing, firstly Cretan hieroglyphics about 2000 to 1700 BCE, and then linear A script, both as yet undeciphered, predominantly found on various types of administrative clay tablets. Sealed impressions on clay were another important form of record keeping. A further example of the culture's high degree of development is the variety and quality of the art forms practiced by the Minoans. Pottery finds revealed a wide range of vessels from wafer-thin cups to large storage jars. Ceramics were initially hand-turned but then increasingly made on the potter's wheel. In decoration, there was a progression from flowing geometric designs in camera's wares to vibrant, naturalistic depictions of flowers, plants, and sea life in the later floral and marine styles. Common pottery shapes include three-handled amphorae, tall-beaked jugs, squat round vessels with a four spouts, beakers, small lidded boxes, and ritual vessels with figure-of-8 shaped handles. Stone was also used to produce similar vessel types or ritual vessel for pouring libations. Large-scale figure sculpture has not survived, but there are many figurines in bronze and other materials. Subjects range in scale from miniature to larger than life size. The Minoan were one of the earliest cultures to paint natural landscapes without any human presence in the scene. Such was their admiration of nature. Animals too were often depicted in their natural habitat. For example, monkeys, birds, dolphins, and fish. Although Minoan frescoes were often framed with decorative borders of geometric designs, the principal fresco itself on occasion went beyond conventional boundaries such as corners and covered several walls of a single room surrounding the viewer. The Minoans, as a seafaring culture, were also in contact with foreign peoples throughout the Aegean, as evidenced by the Near Eastern and Egyptian influences in their early acts, but also in the later export trade. Notably, the exchange of pottery and foodstuffs such as oil and wine in return for precious objects, and materials such as copper from Cyprus and Attica and ivory from Egypt. Several Aegean islands, especially in the Cyclades, display the characteristics of a palace-centered economy and political structure, as seen on Crete, while Minoan artists, especially fresco painters, took their skills to the royal palace of Egypt and the Levant. What then led to the decline of the Minoans? The reasons for the demise of the Minoan civilization continue to be debated. Palaces and settlements show evidence of fire and destruction about 1450 BC, but not at Knossos, which was destroyed perhaps a century later. The rise of the Mycenaean civilization in the mid-2nd millennium BCE on the Greek mainland and the evidence of their cultural influence on later Minoan acts and trade make them the most likely cause. However, other suggestions include earthquakes and volcanic activity with a consequent tsunami. The eruption of Terra, the present-day island of Santorini, may have been particularly significant, although the exact date of this cataclysmic eruption is disputed and therefore its connection with the end of the Minoan period remains unclear. The most likely scenario was probably a fatal mix of natural environmental damage and competition for wealth, weakening the structure of society, which was then exploited by invading Mycenaeans. But whatever the cause, most of the Minoan sites were abandoned by 1200 BCE, and Crete would not return to the Mediterranean stage of history until the 8th century BC, when it was colonized by archaic Greeks. Do you have any question or any idea you think we should know? Kindly drop it in comments down below. Please remember to subscribe for more videos on ancient history and civilizations, archaeology, mysteries, and other world mythology. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.